This story's opening begins with a tale. The tale of an ambitious and ruthless man, Zhu Wenwu, who was fortunate enough to get his hands on 10 magical rings. The 10 rings granted him unlimited power, which made him rule a legion of soldiers, with the agenda of infiltrating the world and changing the course of history. His army was trained to fight mercilessly without being noticed, and over the course of centuries, his army gave him unimaginable power. This mighty ruler built his empire that brought him everything a man could have wanted, but something is lacking and as usual, he hunts the object of his ambition. Around 1996, Wenwu plans on finding a legendary village called Ta Lo that hides within a dense forest and, according to legend, is the home of mythical creatures. To find Ta Lo, he must go through a dangerous maze that keeps on changing, and whoever is caught is crushed into pieces. There's no room for mistakes on the quest for Ta Lo. Ta Lo becomes Wenwu's ultimate obsession after conquering everything he could possibly want. He finds a woman, Yinglai, some kind of guardian of Ta Lo, who's ready to fight anyone who dares to invade her village. She doesn't know of this man's power, but neither does he know what she's capable. They fight like equals, each one showing a full display of their powers, but there could be only one winner in this battle, and it's her. Their connection is stronger than anything they'd seen or felt before, and it makes them inseparable. Years later, Yinglai and Zhu Wenwu build a family together, but it costs Lai everything she had, her powers, her family, and her village Ta Lo. As a loving mother, she makes sure to pass on to her son and daughter everything she learned in Ta Lo. Fast forward to 2021, and we meet Sean, who is getting ready for work. He lives in San Francisco, California, and works as a valet in a hotel. His best friend Katie also spends her days parking fancy cars for a living. They don't have much, but they seem happy. It's just another day in the office for them, and to shake off boredom, Katie has the fabulous idea of going for a ride around town in one of the hotel's guests' expensive cars. As always, she throws the rules in the trash and makes questionable decisions, while he brings balance. And later that day, meet an old friend, Sue, and her husband. Katie and Sean make sure to embarrass Sue by telling her husband every rebellious high school memory they have. Apparently, Katie saved Sean once by distracting some bullies by singing the lyrics to Hotel California, one of Katie's memorable high school highlights. Sue is a different woman now and wears the cape of the boring adult who forgot how to have fun, and she reminds Sean and Katie that they should grow up and live up to their potential as well. Katie and Sean leave the bar feeling offended by Sue's lecture on adulthood and how they are wasting it away, and take the most reasonable decision to have a proper nightcap in a karaoke bar. A new day comes and, as always, Sean meets Katie at her home so they can get to work. Her family is warm and welcoming to him, but the complete opposite with Katie, as they bring up her lack of interest in pursuing a career once again. The comments are annoying enough to ruin breakfast, so Katie and Sean leave for work. San Francisco is a lively city. Katie and Sean, as two broke people in a big city, often take the bus to work. It's a ride they are already used to, but there's something different with this one. Katie complains about her mother's expectations concerning her future, but a shady guy interrupts them to talk about Sean's necklace. Two other guys come out of nowhere and try to get his pendant. One of them attacks Katie, and Sean just turns into a furious ninja, blowing everyone's minds with his fighting skills, including Katie. They take a breath, thinking the fight is over, but a giant Romanian guy approaches from the back of the bus. His name is Razor Fist, and he is a tough opponent. The bus ride turns into a nightmare for everyone in it and for those crossing its way. The action is so hectic that the bus driver hits his head and loses consciousness. Katie thinks fast and takes the wheel, making the chaos even worse. Sean didn't expect to be fighting in a bus in California, much less with some guy that looks like the Terminator on a mission, and all this for a simple green pendant. The passengers are in great danger, and so are the people on the streets. Sean thinks fast and gets everyone to the front of the bus, as he notices that the back has been crushed, and will detach violently from the rest of the vehicle. Katie struggles to keep control of the speedy bus, but inevitably crushes a line of cars parked on a street. That's the only way she's able to stop the crazy bus. The passengers and bus driver seem to be fine, as the bus lands on top of the cars, but Sean sees that all that fighting was for nothing. His pendant is gone. Katie follows Sean all the way to his home, in a complete state of disbelief at what just happened to them, mostly at how Sean reacted to it. They've known each other for over 10 years, and she's pissed at him for hiding so many things from her for so long. Sean now packs a backpack, saying he has to meet his sister in Macau, and that just takes Katie to a whole new level of anger. Sean is cornered, and has to tell Katie the truth about him and his family. Without asking for his opinion, she informs him he'll have time to explain everything on the flight to Macau. They take a red-eye flight to Macau to meet Sean's sister. He confides to Katie some painful memories about how things were as he grew up with his dad, and the exhausting training sessions he put Sean through. In spite of all the baffling details Sean shares with her, Katie does her best not to judge him, but she wants to know everything, including his name, which is not Sean. Katie has always held Sean in high regard, but when he tells her his real name, there's nothing she can do but make fun of him. He definitely deserves it. He says his name is actually Shanghai. She struggles to pronounce it, given her terrible language skills, but notices the resemblance between Shang and Sean. There's no way he thought it'd be a good idea to hide from his mercenary dad by changing his name from Shang to Sean. Not a smart move, in her opinion. Arriving in the modern city of Macau, a brighter version of Las Vegas, they head to the address written on the postcard Shang received from his sister. It's a skyscraper going through some renovation. Shang and Katie are welcomed by John, some kind of tour guide of the place. He immediately recognizes them from the viral bus fight video and takes them to get to know the place. Shang should buckle up for what's to come. John fills them in on Shang's taking part in some fights while there. Turns out that the building is a fight club where people place bets on the fighters, and there are all kinds of fighters in that place. Shang is a bit intimidated, whereas Katie is super curious about the place and the money involved. A nice surprise comes from the cage. Doctor Strange's sidekick and Sorcerer Supreme Wong is fighting the abomination, shocking both Katie and Shang. John couldn't be more excited with the fact that the next fighter to go in the cage is Shang, as he announces his fearsome opponent. Goosebumps spread all over Shang's spine. He's about to fight his sister, Zhu Xiaoling. It would be an understatement to say that Zhu Xiaoling is mad at her brother. She is furious and makes sure to kick his ass in the cage. He tries to reason with her, warning her that their dad is planning something and he is coming for her next. Nothing Shang says will erase her memories of him running away from their dad and leaving her behind. She definitely holds some grudges. Zhu Xiaoling rubs in Shang's face the fact that she owns the profitable fight club and that she didn't need his help, as she built her own empire. Shang doesn't get why she's so mad that he's there, if she was the one who asked him to come to Macau. He hands her the postcard, but she doesn't understand what it is. The penny drops when they hear an explosion, and the alarm blares. Everyone goes crazy trying to flee the building. Shang's sister is the first to escape, and leaves him and Katie there. Razorfist joins the party, along with dozens of soldiers from his dad's army. For them, the only way out is from the outside of the building by climbing down the structure used for the renovation. Katie is just paralyzed. It doesn't take long for his dad's goons to find them, and Shang is forced to fight them all by himself. Katie does what she can to get rid of the assassins, and that is to sing the lyrics to Hotel California again. But that's not enough. The assassin tosses her out, and she falls down from the building. Shang doesn't get to her in time, but Zhu Xiaoling does, and she saves Katie. The fight outside the club building goes on, as Shang faces his former coach, a cruel guy. They take the fight inside, but it doesn't last long, because someone even more dangerous arrives. Zhu Xiaoling and Katie are held hostage by the group of assassins, and Shang's fight is interrupted by no less than his dad, Zhu Wenwu. The soft-spoken man seems to be glad his son is back home, and takes everyone to his compound, his fortress. Zhu Xiaoling talks to Katie about who her dad is, and why she left the compound to build her own empire. Katie is alarmed. Shang revisits his old training spot and, inevitably, bitter memories strike him. Dinner time comes, and it's not the happiest of meals for Shang, Katie, and Zhu Xiaoling. Zhu Wenwu tells Shang it's time for him to take his place as the heir to his dad's empire, but Shang is utterly against it. Wenwu changes the subject a little and focuses on Katie, asking what her Chinese name is. She tells him it's Ruin, and Wenwu lectures her on the symbolism names carry and how it defines one's persona. The story he tells to illustrate his point is the one about how an American terrified the U.S. by appropriating the Ten Rings legend. Wenwu's monologue goes on as he begins to tell the story of a different chapter of his life, the time when he met his wife, Yinglai, Zhu Xiaoling, and Shang's mother. He recalls forgetting about the 10 rings and leading a simple life with his family, but after some time, everything went down the drain when he lost her forever. A conversation leads Wenwu, his children, and Katie to his studies, and Wenwu reveals an unprecedented plan. Shang and Zhu Xiaoling learn their dad's true intentions behind bringing them back home, and things are more disconcerting than they foresaw. Wenwu explains that soon after he and Yinglai got married, her family, and the entire village of Ta Lo, banned both of them from living there. Now, he believes Yinglai isn't really gone, but that her people in Ta Lo locked her up as a punishment for leaving. As a way to prove his point, Wenwu shows the 2 pendants his men got from Shang and Zhu Xiaoling, and explained to them how Ta Lo can be found. He explains the complexity and fatal nature of the moving maze, and the portal they must cross. Wenwu takes the opportunity to brief his men and children on the plan of rescuing their mother and burning Ta Lo to the ground. Shang doesn't like the plan, and tries to talk Wenwu's army out of it, but his dad's the boss, and makes sure Shang, Zhu Xiaoling, and Katie know that. Wenwu locks them up in some kind of dungeon, but what is meant to be a punishment becomes the beginning of an unimaginable plan between Shang, Zhu Xiaoling, Katie, and a not-so-honorable guest, the Mandarin. Turns out that after the confusion he caused in Tony Stark's life, Wenwu found him and held him hostage in his fortress. His real name is Trevor, and he's a theater actor. He spends his days locked up, accompanied by his faithful friend Morris, a little magic creature from the forests of Ta Lo. The escape plan is in motion, and the getaway vehicle of choice is Razorfist's car. They must fight their way out of the compound to get to Ta Lo, as Wenwu prepares his men for war. Trevor's cute friend, Morris, knows the route to Ta Lo, and they should be prepared for an intense trip. They must wait for Morris's signal to drive into the forest and follow the moving maze, but, as with basically everything in their trip, things won't go so smoothly. The designated driver is, obviously, Katie. It's up to her to keep everyone alive as they cross the deadly maze. They hang on a thread as the forest moves around them and ultimately closes in front of their car, almost crushing them to pieces. Thanks to Katie's driving skills and Morris's accurate directions, they arrive at the gates of Ta Lo. Ta Lo is as magical as Yingli described to Xiling and Shang when they were kids. Unique creatures, including Morris species, live in harmony with nature and men. Speaking of which, the reception is not as warm as they expected. The villagers see them as invaders ready to attack them. However, the misunderstanding is quickly resolved when Yingnan shows up. She is Yingli's sister and Shang and Zhu Xiling's aunt. She shows them the village and tells them the stories of their people. Shang and Xiling warn her that their father is coming to Ta Lo, under the pretext of saving Yingli from the hands of her people. Yingnan explains that Ta Lo is guarded by the Great Protector, but that there's another powerful force present in Ta Lo, the Dweller in Darkness, that consumes the souls of everything in front of it, including those who hold the power of the 10 rings. The 10 rings have enough power to set the Dweller in Darkness free, so the vicious creature lures whoever has the rings, by promising this person what they want the most. For Wenwu, that would be the return of his wife. The leaders of Ta Lo get ready to stand between Wenwu's army and their peaceful sanctuary. Shang, Xiling, and Katie must get ready as well. Zhu Xiling starts her training, and so does Shang, who trains with his aunt. Somehow, he has shut himself up to the abilities and energy he inherited from his mother. He fights with anger and resentment, and now it's up to his aunt to guide him. Even Katie has joined training sessions. She learns the art of the bow and arrow. Meanwhile, Wenwu works on the final details of his mission. At nightfall, Shang finds some time to reflect on some past traumas, like losing his mother and being forced to join his father's training. He confesses to Katie that he found the man who took his mom's life and finally got his revenge. Correction, his father's revenge. Shang regrets it deeply and thinks the only way of redeeming himself is to put an end to his dad by doing what he trained him to do. A new day rises in Ta Lo, and Wenwu is on his way with his assassin. Zhu Xiling, Shang, Katie, and Yingnan, along with the people of Ta Lo, are ready to take a stand and defend the ancient village. The nerve-wracking feeling escalates when Wenwu arrives in Ta Lo. Before anything happens, he decides to talk to his children and persuade them to side with him, but their minds are made up. They will defend Ta Lo and everything their mother cherished the most, before meeting Wenwu. Wenwu goes from a state of devastation to pure rage and vengefulness. He gives Razor Fist the green light to burn the village down. Wenwu's assassins fight the villagers, while Wenwu rushes to the cage of the Dweller in Darkness to save his late wife. Zhu Xiling tells her brother to go find their dad and stop him, while she keeps Razor Fist busy fighting her. As Yingnan foresaw, Shang's anger would cloud his judgment completely when the time to fight his dad came. There's no way Shang will beat his dad while holding back his genuine power. Wenwu sees his son's vulnerability and uses it to his advantage. He finally gets to the gates of the Dweller in Darkness, after tossing Shang into the depths of the Ta Lo River. The fight at the gates of Ta Lo is also intense. Katie wants to help at any cost, but her mentor doesn't let her, afraid she'd get hurt. Zhu Xiling and Razor Fist's combat is relentless, but they are forced to stop abruptly when Yingnan announces that Wenwu has breached the ancient gate, freeing the first creatures devoted to the Dweller. Now, every effort and resource should be used to fight the Dweller, instead of Ta Lo versus Wenwu's assassin. But Razor Fist says he won't fall for that trick. He changes his mind quickly after their most skilled assassin gets his soul sucked by the Dweller's creature. As Wenwu's right hand, he commands his army to fight exclusively the Dweller in Darkness alongside the villagers. Now the fight is for everyone's lives. Wenwu has risen the stakes to unimaginable heights. Katie goes against her mentor's order and decides to fight. At this point, no one has seen Shang. He fell unconscious into the deep waters of the Ta Lo River. To him, it feels like a dream, a good one. He sees his mom in what seems to be a memory, finally a good memory of her, and she tells him he has nothing to be afraid of, and that he should live up to his potential by using everything he's got. He should turn all that energy into something of his own. Shang Kai comes out of his dream ready to honor his mother's legacy, at last. He rides the Great Protector and fights for Ta Lo and for his mother's memory. His emergence re-energizes the villagers and everyone who fights for Ta Lo's survival. Shang Kai's mission is to confront his father as an equal, now that he's found his worth within himself. The Great Protector nods to Zhu Xiling, letting her know that she's also on the right path. Wenwu is appalled by Shang Kai's might, something he had only seen when he met Yingli. He bets all in when he fires the rings at Shang Kai, but he doesn't see what's coming. Shang Kai harnesses his inner power and shocks his father by controlling 5 of the 10 rings. That's the moment that Shang Kai embraces his powers completely, by taking what was given to him by his late mother and his lost father, the ways of the Ta Lo legend, and the strength to take control over all of the 10 rings. Their fight is monumental. When Shang Kai thinks he's convincing his dad to give up on pursuing his senseless plan, the Dweller in Darkness breaks free, destroying everything and everyone that crosses it. Not even Wenwu can deny its power and cruelty, and he moves fast into getting the 10 rings back to fight the monster he has released. However, he's not a match for the Dweller in Darkness and falls into its trap, but only after he passes on control of the 10 rings to Shang Kai. Shang Kai watches his only living parent perishing before his eyes, but before he confronts this evil creature, the Great Protector gets in the way, led by the incomparable Zhu Xiaoling. Now, both Wenwu and Yinglai's children ride the Great Protector in an attempt to save Ta Lo's legacy. It's their last resort, their last chance to right this wrong. Katie learns from her mentor that the only way to stop the Dweller once and for all is to aim at its throat. That's its only vulnerable spot. The Dweller has got a hold of Xiaoling, but Shang promises his sister that he's not leaving her to chance again. The Dweller sucks the Great Protector's life out of it and leads Xiaoling to a dreadful end until Katie shoots her first arrow, hitting the throat of the Dweller in Darkness. The Great Protector breaks free from the Dweller's claws, and Zhu Xiaoling regains control of the Great Protector as Shang Kai ascends above it and strikes it with the 10 rings, putting an end to the dramatic war. Later that day, Yingnan leads a ceremony to pay tribute and honor the lives of those who fought alongside them, but are no longer with them. That's probably the first time Shang Kai has unclenched his fists and taken a deep breath, with the nightmare finally over. Katie's voice comes out of the blue, narrating the end of the adventure that almost led to their demise. The power duo, Shang Kai and Katie, are back at their favorite bar, chatting with Sue and her husband. The couple looks at them, outraged at their courage to tell such a deranged lie. But before Sue finishes her angry speech, she gets interrupted. The Sorcerer Supreme, Wang, comes out of thin air and summons both Shang and Katie, who go through the portal. They find themselves at Wang's library and join a meeting they will never forget. Wang analyzes the 10 rings, trying to figure out what they are made of, but their components don't match any artifact he has seen. Bruce Banner and Carol Danvers join the conversation virtually and shine some light on a certain aspect of the rings which Shang Kai hasn't had the time to think about. At the core of the rings, there's a light, a beacon that emits a distress message, but they don't know who's receiving it or where it leads to. Bruce Banner and Wang officially welcome Katie and Shang Kai to the ultimate experience of their lives, a journey they are about to embark on and won't be able to turn their backs to. Wang advises them to go back home and get their affairs in order, but, as usual, Katie and Shang have another suggestion. They end up partying quite hard at a karaoke bar, singing Hotel California. Zhu Xiaoling goes back to her late father's compound to shut down his operation and establishes her own rule. She has no idea of the power and influence that's coming her way, but she is ready to face it head-on, as her mom and dad taught her.